this is a legitimate form of parenting. In other words, I'm not talking to you. We, of course, have a term for this in adolescent thought, don't we? It's called the silent treatment. And any adolescent is well familiar with it. The ways in which a parent will sometimes not answer the phone. I overheard a student the other day saying, I know she's mad at me, talking about her mother, but she's turned her phone off and she won't answer my calls or my texts. Right? The silent treatment. Jot it down, F3B. Why does the silent treatment work if it does work? Of course, some students have pointed out, the only thing it does is make me more mad. Right? Really? Who's acting childish now? Really? This is the way we're going to behave? I'm not talking to you because you didn't talk to me. Really? And yet, many parents will say, oh, no. We turn the phone off. Not because we don't want to say anything. We turn the phone off because there's a whole lot we want to say. Only we're aware that if we were to say it, it might end a few things called a relationship. Do you got me? In other words, sometimes parents do the equivalent of get up and walk away because they realize if I sit here, or I'm on a phone, I'm going to say some stuff I probably shouldn't say. Why? Because I'm going to say what I really think. Wait a minute. That's called being honest. Wait a minute. Do you really want the adults in your life to be honest with you? I mean, I've heard freshmen say, I want to be able to say whatever I want to say to parents and to teachers. I've been told to be honest all my life. I have a teacher that I don't get on with. I'm going to tell that teacher what I think of that teacher. Are you prepared for the teacher to be honest back? Do we really want honesty? Do you really want your mom tonight to answer the question, when you look at me, what do you think of me? Do you really want that answer? Right? This text says you got to be careful with a mother that tells you what she really thinks. By the way, that's Mimi's mom, right? We're not having any conversation with her. Notice it's the we. It's not I. This is a cultural phenomenon. Let's put it in our notes as well. In this culture, the mother is the matriarch. She says it. We're not talking to this one anymore. She wants to act this way. Notice, she has no concern for us, so we have no concern for her. For this mother, let's put this in our notes. For this mother, the winning at chess was a family affair. It didn't have anything to do with winning a single game of chess so that the daughter, Mimi, could be famous, a ranked player. For the mother, when the daughter was winning, the family was winning. Which is a really interesting idea, 3B. Is it the case that your actions as a freshman student are in fact the actions of your family? Is it fair for some teacher to read your last name and then know something about you because the teacher knows something about your family? Is that fair? And by the way, if that's not fair, then what about the freshman who walks out of Orland High School, looks up and sees a cop going slowly by, and knows immediately everything about that cop because it's a cop? I don't need to know that guy's name. I don't need to know what he's like. Don't try and tell me that he's kind of cool. He's a cop. That's all I need to know. Really? Why? Well, because I've had run-ins with cops. I know about them. Oh, so you are allowed to generalize from the greater population to the one. I thought you said that was unfair when it was done to you from your family. This is a normal human thing. That is to say, Mama feels like her accomplishments were all about the family. Obviously, Mimi feels like her accomplishments were about, why are you embarrassing me? Really? Come on, knock this off. You want to have something to talk about? You go learn chess and you do it yourself. In other words, aren't you an extension of the people who raised you? And if you are, then by definition, don't they have the right to see your actions as somehow their actions? Do you think it's ever been the case that a freshman parent has been embarrassed by virtue of what a freshman has done and had a legitimate right to say, you're embarrassing me by your actions? Me. You're hurting our family. Knock it off. It's my life. I do with it what I want. Mama says that's not the way families work. Why? Because when you were 3 days old, you could do nothing on your own. When you were 1 year old, you could do nothing on your own. In other words, these parents raise you. Do they have a right to claim a certain part of your life? And what does it mean then to grow up? Well, notice nobody looked at me. The bone chopsticks clink against the insides of bowls, being emptied into hungry mouths. She's not gonna get anything to eat. I walked into my room, closed the door, laid down on my bed. Freshman readers understand this very well. Almost like a ceremony of a kind when you're upset, right? The room was dark, the ceiling filled with shadows from the dinnertime lights of neighboring flats. They all live in these apartments together. In my head, I saw a chessboard with 64 black and white squares. By the way, people who play chess usually love math because it's all about numbers. It's all about mathematics, right? And so she's got the numbers, right? Opposite me was an opponent, 2 angry black slits. Uh-oh, we're back to that again. That is to say, the mother. She wore a triumphant smile. Jot down in your notes, what is it that she feels like has happened in this chess game? Right? She's lost the game, hasn't she? She knows, crap, I said something I shouldn't have said. I did something I shouldn't have done. Instead of coming back and saying, Mom, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I apologize. That was bad form. I love you. I'm happy that you're proud for me. It's bad of me to have thought that I was somehow doing this on my own. There's no way I would have even been able to play chess if you hadn't given me the opportunity. She doesn't do any of those things. And now she realizes it. Of course, she comes back to a comment her mother made, right? Strongest win cannot be seen, she said. In other words, she's learning the rules of a different game. Namely, the game of what it's like to be a daughter growing up with a mother, right? Her black men advanced across the plain, slowly marching to each successive level as a single unit. My white pieces screamed as they scurried and fell off the board one by one. By the way, again, for those of you who know chess, you understand the difference between the black and the white. White always moves first in chess, and therefore always has the advantage, which is why if you're going to play games, usually the stronger player will take the black, and the weaker player will take the white. Notice which one's mom and which one's daughter. Daughter is the white pieces. She should have the advantage, and she's getting jacked off the board. In other words, at the end of our story, she's learned, maybe in a very rough way, how to play a new kind of game with new rules. All right, let's go ahead quickly now. I know we've done a lot of this, but let's jump to 2 and 3 really quickly. At 2A, major messages themed. You jot down the one that for you works the most. Some students have pointed out that this is really a story that is not so much about chess, it's about family. And the ways in which you don't choose your family, but you also can't choose to leave your family because your family is in you. It's part of the rules of the game, if you will, if you want to say it that way, right? Of course, the second observation here is guys versus girls. She lives in a Chinese world where the expectations for her as a woman already written in stone, and yet she is going to find a way to get out of that, right? And chess is a way for her to be able to escape. The game allows her to escape. Let's jump to 2B really quickly. What do you want to say is the powerful symbols? Obviously a chessboard here, the chess pieces. We've got all kinds of interesting similes happening in this one as well. The genius of the writing. Can I say this out loud? Some students say, this is a pretty long story, but can I say this out loud? You have to have the patience to tell a good story sometimes. You know what I mean? Later, we're going to study some other stories. We're going to do a text like the Scarlet Ibis. Think about Most Dangerous Game. These are stories that take time, right? It takes a while. Now, for the gamers in the house, you completely appreciate this already because you know that no game would be a game that you could finish in an afternoon sitting. Think about that. You play games that take literally hundreds of hours to be able to finish. That's if you're good at it. If you're crummy at it, it's going to take a lot more than that. And yet you're willing to go through the process because you want to know how the game will end. The same is true of a well-written story. Let's jump to level 3. 3A. What is for you your favorite story about parents versus kids? Right? The movies that come to mind are, of course, really famous ones. Movies about kids and the way that they have to get on with their parents. James Dean famous 1950s film, Rebel Without a Cause, is a classic example, right, of a kid who's butting up against the authority of mother and father living in a traditional family. What is your favorite movie about? What's your favorite song about that tension between authority and kids? tension between parents and children, we might say. A classic example of this is Sophocles' great play Antigone. In that play, you have the King Creon, who is going to do something really tragic, and his son tells him, "Dad, you're screwing up." And the father says back to him, "I am the father, you are the son, you don't tell me, I tell you." Which takes us to 3b. What is it like to know that what your parent is doing or telling you is something you don't agree with? Do you tell them? Or do you just bite your tongue and get on with it? The classic example of this in your senior year will be when we study Shakespeare's play Hamlet, where the young man, adolescent Hamlet, will say, "Break my heart, for I must hold my tongue." His father is dead. His mother has gone out and found a new dad, brought him home from the bar, and the new dad says to the son, hey, come to Papa, I'm your new daddy. Hamlet's stuck. Hamlet's stuck. What do you do in a situation like this? You loathe this new father, but you know that your mother, who you care about, likes this guy. So what do? If you blow this thing up in her face, now she's mad at you. Break my heart, for I must hold my tongue. It's a line that resonates, right? Should you sometimes keep your mouth shut? At 3b, let's ask this question. When was the last time that you didn't pass up an opportunity to shut up and you should have? Write it down. When was the last time you should have kept your mouth shut, especially when it was an adult and authority figures were in play, and you didn't do it? Can you remember that? And can you write about it? And if you had it to do over again, would you go back and would you play the game? See the gig. Would you play the game differently? Right? See how that one works? Last comment. I remember years ago, I was lecturing Sophocles' Antigone. And the door opened and slammed shut in the middle of class. And a young man walked into the room and slammed his books down with the F word. I was sitting right over there on the heater. He had just come out of the assistant principal's office where he had gotten jacked. And he was hot. I mean hot. Came into the room, slammed the books down, and of course he wanted me to ask, so that we could enjoy a conversation in class, what happened. So I said to him, what happened? And he said, I will tell you about that blankety blank assistant principal. And I said, oh, don't worry. It's fine. Here in a few days, you will be the assistant principal, and then you'll get to find out what that feels like. And he gave me the exact same look several of you are giving me right now. By the way, the room got dead silent. They were wondering, what's McGee going to do with this dynamic? And I said, don't worry about it. Here in a few days, you'll get to be the assistant principal. You're going to find out what it's like. And he goes, I will never be no blanking assistant principal. I said, no. You don't understand. Today after school, you're walking by the park. And there is 2 6th graders wailing away on a 4th grader. You see it happening. You got an option. Do you walk by the park and ignore it? Or do you walk up to the 2 6th graders, because you're a high school freshman, and you say to the 2 6th graders, knock it off? And he said, well, I tell them to knock it off. I said, right, because you believe in justice, which is why you're so upset, because you feel like you've been treated unjustly by the assistant principal. I won't use your adjectives. I'll just say assistant principal. And he goes, yeah, I'd go up and tell him, knock it off. And I said, so when the first one pops back to you and says, or what? What are you going to do about it? You just became the assistant principal. You just became the assistant principal. What are you going to do? You going to pop them? Which is ironically, of course, the same thing they're doing to the 4th grader. Only you have the right to do that because you're a freshman and of course they're... You going to pop them? Or are you going to try and reason with them? Talk with them? The way I'm going to guess that assistant principal tried to reason with you before you got fired up. Just saying. Welcome to being an assistant principal. It was the weirdest thing in the room because everyone kind of recognized the moment when, in your life, you're going to move from being the kid to being the adult. And it will be in that moment that you get to come to terms with this dynamic of what it's like to have a child speak their mind, and then you get to decide how you respond. Any parent knows exactly what that's like and how you're going to respond. Well, there you go. An introduction to a classic set of ideas, and I hope that you maybe grew from your study of the text. Thank you.